All right. So we're at about 2 minutes after 5. I know that we're probably going to continue to have some people filter in as we get going here, but I want to be respectful of Sergeant Major Merritt's time, and so we're gonna get moving forward. I'd like to start out by welcoming everyone. Thank you for joining us for this month's or this quarter's Distinguished Speaker Series. Just a couple of announcements before we get going. The Ranger Association has recently entered into a relationship with Combat Flip-Flops. They have started to promote a pair of flip-flops that has the regimental colors on it, has the lightning, sun, and star emblem that we are all familiar with. If you are interested in purchasing a pair, I will put a link in the description. There's a percentage of every purchase that gets donated back into the association, which helps to defray the costs of events like this and other things that the association puts on throughout the year. Also, we have a membership raffle that's going on right now. If you refer a new member into the association and they become a life member, your name gets entered into a raffle every quarter for a Fairbairn Sykes knife. The first raffle will be at the end of this month, so you've got a little bit of time if you got a buddy that you're trying to get into the organization and he's on the fence with it yet. Coming up in October, USARA will be participating in the Moog Mile competition that's going on. Keep an eye on the website. There'll be more information posted there about how you can get a team together and partner up with some of your buddies in the Ranger community to raise attention and some funds for a good cause. As we are going through tonight's presentation, if you have questions that you'd like Sergeant Major Merritt to take a stab at, please use the Q&A function. There's a little button at the bottom of your screen. You can enter your question there, and that will give us an easy way to keep track of them as they're coming in. I know sometimes people will also put them in the chat. We'll do the best that we can to monitor the chat so that we don't miss anybody, but it's a little bit harder to keep track of them when you add them down there. So without any further ado, we'll jump right into tonight's presentation. We are grateful to have Sergeant Major Rick Merritt with us. Rick spent 36 years in the Army. 25 of those years were in the regiment. Unfortunately for him, perhaps about a year of that time was spent in the same S3 shop as I was in. And so I'm grateful for him putting up with me for that period of time. And in 2014, he was inducted as a distinguished member of the regiment. So Rick is a man that many of the people on this call know, and I'm sure a lot of you are here because you're curious to hear what he has to say rather than what I have to say. And so with that, I'm going to turn the floor over to him. Thank you for coming tonight, Sergeant Major.
Oh, it's I'm humbled and honored to be here. And special thanks to you, Travis, and all you're doing as I call myself as you, a Ranger for life. And when we use that term, it's got to have a meaning to it and more than just a title. And you're doing just that. And I appreciate that much. 36 years, actually just shy of 36, but that last 6 months felt like a year. So I guess in dog years, it could be close to that there, as anyone knows how it is transitioning. But I really want to give a special thanks to that leadership factory, the Ranger Regiment, the Army, that made me the leader and the man I am today. And knowing that is, I simply spent a lifetime surrounding myself around men better than me, and still doing that today as a Ranger for life. That I work closely through the Sua Sponte Foundation with Rangers, and as well with the 75th Rangerism Association, where I just became the second vice president for that. And again, continue to spend my life surrounded around people better than me, and always striving to get back the many blessings that they had given to me. So special thanks to those as well. Moving right along, I'll talk a little bit first. A theme I'd like to talk a little bit about my time through the Army and the regiment, and some changes that I saw there over the years, and then transition that into the big Army that I went out to, and from that talk about a Ranger for life and the nucleus of many of our veterans, much more than the active duty, and what I feel that they could do for our nation continued as a Ranger for life. So Um, with that, I could talk about the shooting and moving and communicating and killing, but we got plenty of people that can do that. I would really like to focus today on some changes that I saw that I thought were very instrumental, and changes that I saw across the regiment in my 25 years with them. And probably one of the greatest I saw at the get-go was the Echo Company, where we had our own support and those combat support MOSs that we brought into a company, and we were able to actually support ourselves more than depending on outside support as much as we had to in yesteryear and other conflicts or battles there. Followed up by that, the Regimental Special Troops Battalion, which I got to have the pleasure of being the command sergeant major there after I left 3rd Battalion CSM, and all that it brought into across the spectrum into what we call today multi-domain battle, and that of fighting at the speed of war, which the regiment does so well. Within that, the RAS program, you know, I went through RIP years ago. I was a RIP instructor, the Ranger Indoctrination Program, and I can recall my platoon leader, then Lieutenant Eric Krilla, and I discussing that indoctrination is just that, you know, that we could do better within the community to give us more value and credibility in the community if we also had our own assessment and selection program. I would say we had one, but really it started once you got into battalion, really phase 2 of it there. And that could be a burden and even maybe a risk factor of the amount of relief for standards that we had to have on that. So once we started the Ranger Assessment Selection Program for level 1, level 2 there for our mainly our level 1 and 2 enlisted Rangers coming in, and then for our officers and NCOs and RAS 2. Even though we hold ourselves accountable, and that you have to earn your way every day and not rest on your laurels as leaders who are going back into leadership positions of greater responsibility, had to take that to RAS 2 again, or for the first time of that there, to validate their self through that. So a very good structured formalized program that years later, when I didn't see it happening, but myself and then Colonel Corella was a command team, and me, his regimental sergeant major, you know, we really expanded on that, and today what we have with RAS. You know, to give an example, on my first year as we were developing and having, well, RAS was taking place, and compared to the second year, we cut our relief for standard packs down by hundreds on that there, where we actually got it down into the teens for that second year there. So really that assessment selection was taken part up front in those 8 weeks, and not how what I call phase 2 of RIP, where it happened at the expense of the battalion on there. So very proud to be a part of that. And I look at it now, and occasionally as a graybeard, get to sit on that RAS board for RAS 2 and observe what we do in RAS 1. And it's really, they've even taken it to the next level, and very, very proud to see that it take place. Now, out of the Special Troops Battalion, I look at the growth and what they've been able to do in combat, and rightfully so. Now we've developed and have stood up a regimental MI battalion. And I believe not far behind, if I have my crystal ball, that you may see a signal battalion, cyber battalion come out of that as well, for all that those folks do as well. I look at our reconnaissance detachment and what they become today, you know, doing like AFO type stuff. And I'm really a provider for them to work for bigger military, but sound professionals who are low risk to the commander, and you know, quiet professionals heard through their actions, and very much so follow the commander's intent without any worry of ever making the cover of Army crimes, so to speak, on that. So very proud of those. Something I grew up with, we know, with then Colonel McChrystal and RSM Mike Hall, our honorary sergeant major of the regiment, really put focus on our big 4. Later we had a mobility made big 5. And we were always doing those type of things, you know, combat focus, PT, marksmanship, etc. We were always doing those, but they really put focus on it very much, where everyone in that regiment put a lot of focus on those key things on that. I used to think and look and see of all the common denominator in those, what was the one thing that brought them all together? And if I was to have a big one, just one, what would it be? And I see that common denominator is still true today with the Rangers is the discipline. I look at the individual discipline that creates the unit discipline, and that's paramount, which I will hit that theme several times a day as we talk about individual character becoming the culture of the unit. Without a doubt, we've always said that, and I'm a product of it, that the Ranger community, the Ranger regiment is a leadership factory. I look across our Army at any given time, 50% of our active duty divisions, our corps levels, even up to the nominative positions or the general officer positions. And you'll find across our Army, it is definitely being led by Rangers. Truly a leadership factory of all venues on that. And I would say leaders aren't born, they're made. And I could say that Ranger Regiment made me the man and the leader that I was today. And it just didn't start with one assessment and you're done. Even as I was asked by Colonel Ben Carilla to be his regimental sergeant major, I had to go through the social selection program to do all the physical events again, and had to do the psychological interviews, and they went back and reported on me. And he would make sure that I did that before I was RSM. As when that man came through multiple different times, he was in the regiment, and seeing that when he came back after being severely wounded and in combat, and came back and did all of his RASP events in one day. And I know he did, because when he called me, he told me I'm going to do them with him. So right there with him. And that's the thing about the Ranger Regiment as well, and the Ranger community. We hold ourselves accountable, our subordinates accountable, and we hold each other accountable. And that's a great thing to have across the unit on that definitely builds that culture and character of the unit. So very much a big part across our Army. Then we go in looking at the after 9/11, the global war on terrorism. You can give it the name that you want to follow where we are on that. Has changed some on that there, but that same character, culture, and work ethic, that creed that regiment has, and they kept pounding at it and working at it and improving and looking for ways to get better at what they were doing. And really, I feel they became the workhorse for JSOC and across Iraq and Afghanistan. And truly, in Afghanistan, once that the regiment was brought in to be the leadership for the task force of a U.S. Joint Special Operations task force we had in Afghanistan, truly all those things together brought that into what we were. So definitely a unit that built its character to its values and creed. And that individual character development made up of our unit culture. Now with that, it's not the haircut, the facial hair, the uniform, or the fancy equipment that we have in modern warfare, but it's really the individual Ranger and the collectively what we do as a unit that really brought that in there. And like I said, holding ourselves accountable on that there, throughout 20 years of GWAT, that discipline built trust that our commanders could depend on, they could count on, knowing that you were a low risk to the commander's intent and on that there. And then the targeting cycles that we helped develop, knocking it out at the speed of war, that became, well, today we got a name for it called multi-domain operations, even where it's become doctrinal. And we were practicing that and helping develop that throughout today. And that is huge on that you're seeing that also go out across not only the big Army, but my time in Korea with the ROC US, Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, senior NCOs, and at the end, even adding officers across the branches in that there. We were developing and working with that and things that didn't have a name, but I was proud to be a part and see that we were helping develop that. And I look back at the targeting cycles and the way we worked with our brigade combat teams and across there, that the U.S. came first on that, and branch didn't matter, that we really were working for the bigger units out there. I often think and look back, if we would have been fighting that way and using multi-domain doctrine would we have had a Black Hawk Down? Maybe we would have killed bin Laden and Tora Bora in 2002. Wouldn't have emboldened an enemy. Maybe no ISIS. Maybe Afghanistan would be in the quagmire that it is today across there with the Taliban. So not only over years, but what was paid in blood and life and loss, and as well, you know, billions of dollars on that there is, again, I look and hope we don't have walls build up and we have to rebuild that on the next conflict across that there as we continue to growth onto multi-domain operations. And with those domains, to me, the most important domain that stands out of all is the human domain, the Ranger domain. You know, that is the biggest factor of it that's really made a difference across there. Following the commander's intent and his orders, but yet able to use disciplined initiative when the enemy gets a vote on the battle that day. And I can tell you time and time again, that is what helped us complete the mission and have our success. And, you know, with that there, it definitely, again, the culture across there that you hear me say time and time again that made a difference on that. You know, I look at our individual and unit discipline values and using the Ranger Creed and how we develop that across that. And I would say not only do we use that in combat, but we need to use that as a Ranger for life. As you heard me saying earlier, it's got to mean something on that there. And that same character, that same culture, you know, do we use? Because you just can't change the culture by somebody by shaving off a beard or bringing tighter grooming standards. I look at our great warriors from Vietnam and look at the guys that scaled the cliffs of Point du Hoc or on the beaches of Omaha. And I noticed they had longer hair than I did. I look at some of our special units out there that have that. That's really, so to me, that's not going to change the culture if you're having some issues. What you got to change is the character, and that individual character and the regiment, and the Rangers build that so well that that is what becomes the unit culture. And that is powerful across there to have. You know, as I look for a Ranger for Life program and across there and seeing how we take care of our Rangers into our nation now across there, I give credit to the Phoenix program, which our regiment has developed and worked with great leaders like Honorary Sergeant Major Mike Hall. And, you know, looking there that we talked about the Phoenix is where the Spartans and the shields, how it come together, you know, that they were impenetrable across there and the strength of it. Again, I'm a man of words and I like a Ranger for Life, but across that there. And, you know, I look back and always seen how West Point, I thought, did very well of taking care of their own for life, not only in service, but for life. And I'm like, we could do that. And I call upon all of the retirees, our thousands of successful Rangers across the Army who have served their country, veteran now, and CEOs leading across our small towns and nations that we use them to coach, mentor our Rangers in transition to do to really bring that culture into our nation there. You know, and I look at myself in retirement, Ranger for Life. You know, what would I find? Just that I'm working for a former congressman who's also a Ranger, an Army aviator. I work at a Special Messenger Unit's retired colonel, a fellow NCO, all of us Ranger qualified. You know, looking at the congressman, his sons working through going to becoming officers in the Ranger School should be in their short vision on that there. But I found a place right there that we have the same core values, the work ethic, that character, and it comes into our culture. As I see us advocates working for our military and know that they can depend on us, and but to have that around there, I feel very lucky, and knowing that that culture can be out there across our small towns and cities there. So really, I look at the morals and out of our creed and carrying it on. Politics aside, don't worry about a party, but we know our nation's been in turmoil through COVID, through the election process and the politics and the social things that's happened in our cities on that there. But politics aside, I think our nation needs the Ranger culture to strengthen her character. We definitely need it amongst our citizens and for that of our nation. I think we needed that more than any other time across our country. And I'll tell you, from north to south, sea to sea, across small town America to our struggling metroplex cities, we need to bring the values, discipline, convictions to build the character of our leaders and culture of our nation. And I'll tell you, I don't think there's a better way we could do it than with those Ranger veterans out there and senior retirees to help out along with that, using our Ranger for Life program and our FedEx there. But and not only, I keep saying again, retirees, but there's thousands of Ranger veterans out there who served their country for 3 or 4 years, for each their own, that decided to move on to the next chapter in life. But we definitely have to reach out through them. Through mentorship, coaching, and guidance, they become leaders of strong character from teachers, coaches, counselors, principals, school board members, clergymen, priests, preachers, etc., lawyers, small governments such as township trustees, city councilmen, mayors, state legislators, governors, senators, congressmen, or even as Supreme Court justices, and possibly one day as the President of the United States. I would tell you, there's not a better way to bring up the ethical, moral values and character of our nation than having Rangers leading the way across America. Rangers have always led the way and will continue. So I feel that we have a powerful thing in our nation that our community could mentor and coach these young Rangers and many across us to take to help our nation to bring that back. And Ranger for Life has got to mean something. So I feel that's what we truly need to do. I'll pause there and see if you have any comments or lanes you want to go down, Travis, or see if anybody has any questions out there.
Sure, I appreciate it. The first question that I've got, you talked a little bit earlier about your experience in the regiment and the importance of exporting Ranger culture beyond the walls of the regiment. Could you talk a little bit about the importance of Rangers, not just at the regiment, but across the Army in general, and what your experience was with that? We know that you spent time in Korea and you spent time at 10th Mountain. This question would like to know about your interaction with Rangers and those other units that are outside of the regiment.
I'll start off from many years ago. In 1984, Private Merritt in Germany, competing for his expert inference badge. I studied that, went through the skills, did it in my room at night with my roommate, went to the stations with the cadre out there to coach us through it on their practice and train up week on that there, the practice test. Not one of my leaders was out there coaching me through. When we came in at night, there was no training aids, anything for us, Mite Chow, so we could practice at night. When I was testing, practice test, I didn't have a leader out there. I ran the 12-mile road march with my roommate. As a private, I come in under 2 hours and turned around waiting for my roommate to come in. Back then, on the function check of the M16, he didn't do that right when he was assembling this assembly and had to do the road march over again. Who went with him? Was it a team leader, a squad leader, platoon sergeant? No, Private Merritt went with him again. There was no one out there watching us do that. And coming across, and we earned our EIB as he retested, did fine, with just a couple handfuls of people in a battalion. I had a leader call me in and told me that I need to go be a Ranger. And I listened to him. He set me up. He came from the regiment. 3rd Battalion had just started up, and off I go. Then I go to a unit and I watch EIB being conducted there, and the combat action badge now has a whole different. The leadership there, I called it EIB stood for everybody in battalion. Team leader, squad leader, platoon sergeant, everyone working with you, working together at night. Training aids were set up, chow was set up, had all the practice you need on that there. Leadership was out there with you. When you did a road march, tons of leaders were going out with you doing a road march. Of course, they couldn't assist you, touch you on that there, but they were leading by example and out there with you. It really woke me up to see what leadership truly was on that there. And I caught a tale of 2 EIBs, and that woke me up on that there, and really had a lasting effect on me. Then going out into the big army, I look back now and see RSM Chuck Albertson and his regimental commander, what our officers had been doing for 4 decades, but the NCOs, once we stood up 3rd Battalion Regimental Headquarters, no longer had to leave after 5 years to go out into the big army or go to be a ranger instructor on that there. As building up and having a large, building up a regiment, we were able to stay there quite a long time. As long as you were cooking at gas and moving up, you could stay there 25 years. I really have to commend Chuck Albertson on how he had the NCOs go out to the big army before they could come back and be a senior leader. What I like, they didn't tell them what mark they had to go at 5 years, 10 years on that there. Just if when you hit the pyramid, if you haven't left and went out to the big army in some way, then you will not come back to be a senior leader. That has made huge impact. I could think how much better I would have been a command sergeant major at my 2nd time being a CSM. I know after 3 years as a command sergeant major for 3rd Battalion, how much I was able to give the Special Troop Battalion as the command sergeant major on there. Same way with the position of being able to do operations sergeant major jobs on that made me more well-rounded. Had I been able, the way I've seen some do it, over to another unit to maybe even, if you will, validate even more my leadership out into the big army, I think that's huge what they've done. That our colonels, our company commanders have all done it across there, platoon leaders as well. But now we're having the NCO Corps doing that to some degree now across there. That is huge. So again, back to the main portion of the question on there as I have. After I was a regimental sergeant major, I'm like, I want to go out into the big army, and I would like to go to a division. Things have changed then. You got to email, and if you want to do it, send it to the aide, and you come up for an interview if they wanted to have you. A little bit less informal across there. Sometimes you get the call asking you to do it on there. So I intensely, I had to have a job after regimental sergeant major. So I'm like, okay, I don't want to go to a brigade combat team and be there a short time and then get picked to division and go away from them at the time when we were in a lot of fighting going on there still in the world, and I didn't want to have to leave that team. So I chose to select only to be a garrison sergeant major. Very important job, but I figured if I asked people to name their last 5 garrison sergeant majors, and I was one of them, my name probably wouldn't be remembered on there. I just thought it'd be easier to leave if I was not in a leadership position of war fighters deploying. So sure enough, I got selected to be the garrison sergeant major for Fort Rucker, Alabama, and I went down there and checked it out. Me and some aviators are going to have some fun. But sure, there I came. General Milley said yes. The 1st Mountain Division came up on there, and my interview with him, and there I go to the Ranger Regiment at North, as I call it. We've had 3 or 4 RSMs up there as a division sergeant major, and plenty of senior leaders and division commanders, deputy commanders coming out of there. So how am I going to do it now at a division much larger with a lot of different MOSs? And to me, it was no secret that I just went and did everything that I did in the regiment across there on leadership. Now I had to look at, we had some standards that had to meet a lot of different MOSs and males and females at that time. We didn't have females in the Rangers at that time. So I really went out there and wanted to make sure that I still used the same discipline, the same character, individual building, and had two great generals, followed by General Townsend, who really empowered me. But where they empowered me from was trust. They trusted me, empowered me to follow their priorities and to follow their intent. And I was able to run with it on there from there, to be able to work on individual skills and schooling across there, and really had a challenging time and a good time on that there, and really enjoyed that very much. It was very rewarding, and from there, took some time out to heal up. Was at the Pentagon, and seeing how that place ran, a lot different fight than fighting with a computer rather than a rifle. Once I healed up, was able to deploy again, went to Korea, and even more so there. Then I got into more of the ROC US, Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines part of it there in Korea. And what I found is there's leaders all across the Army on there. You just have to develop them, bring them up, and put them in positions where they could do well. Of course, I didn't have, like, such as I had a regiment where they were all so many leaders in one unit, platoon, company, but they were spread out across that. Definitely 10th Mountain Division, very disciplined. What we did with the Big Five there, and worked across the different marksmanship schoolings that we did across there, was just phenomenal, able to do that. So I would tell anyone that that you want to really practice leadership, get out to the big Army too on that there, and that you'll have some more challenges, but it'll be very rewarding. And so I enjoyed it much. And again, I think that it's great that the regiment is now having our leaders NCOs go out to do that. Some of them are not going to come back, but they're going to skyrocket into leadership throughout the Army. I look at my good friends, Chris Greca and Darren Bond, who did not come back to the regiment after Sergeant Major's Academy, but they just skyrocketed to the GO 4-star level on that there, and all that they could give to our, not only to our Army, but our sister services as well. So that is definitely a good move, not only for the regiment, not only for the NCOs, but for our Army as well. So kudos on just that. And it's evident. If you look across there now, 50% of divisions across the different special operation command positions across there of Rangers are in those positions, as well as our general officers too. Go ahead, Travis.
Thank you, Rick. I've got two questions here that I'm going to try to combine into one. One comes from Michael Burke. One comes from Logan Merrill. They both ask about the challenges associated with Rangers moving on from active service and into the civilian world, and would like to know, one, can you talk a little bit about what the average Ranger can do to make a difference, whether it's in the context of the Ranger for Life program or out in their communities? And two, what recommendations do you have for Rangers who are out in the civilian world and who are struggling to have an objective to achieve or to try to accomplish now that they're not in warfighting mode anymore?
Again, I go back to the tools that they had while they were active duty. And if you look at our Army values, our soldier creed, our NCO creed, our Ranger creed, creed values, look at the teamwork that we were taught. Ranger buddy, never leave a fallen comrade across that. Surrender is not a Ranger word. Those have to be more than cliches and words and something we just recite in the morning after PT on that there. You got to live by that. And I would tell you the hardest thing that I've ever had to do in my life was live by that Ranger creed. Because I would tell you, this says I'll move further, faster, and fight harder than any other soldier. There was a time when that was me. But I tell you, as I was getting older, 59 years old and out doing a 20-mile road march with 1st Ranger Battalion, that wasn't the case. I definitely was not first coming across that 20-mile road march on that there, but I wasn't last on there. So striving to go that creed and living by that creed and living by it every day. Now, no man's alone. It's a big nation out there. You know, we got people, small town America, all across there. Not everybody lives outside Fort Benning or Hunter Army Airfield or Fort Bragg on that there. We have to look to how we have that teamwork, that Ranger buddy. And like I said, it doesn't necessarily need to be myself, other senior leaders who retired. There's thousands of successful Rangers out there. Hey, at first, they're starting a family, they're growing up, they're building up their everything. But as they get older, I feel that a lot of them want to give back. And what a perfect way to have them as mentors across our nation. And looking at the Ranger for Life and the FedEx program, and we formalize it across sectors, north to south, east to west, where each one of those Rangers can have a mentor that he knows by name, by face. Not only someone he could call or maybe get online with, but someone that he could go see, or they come and see him, where we look and see their goals and work with them in college, work with how we get them into any type of different careers if they're wanting to be in the work field, such as a paramedic or a police officer across that there. As I talked about earlier, the small towns of having coaches, teachers, mentors across there that we have to reach out. Now, to say that, I feel that, dovetailing in and using the Soldier for Life program, but really, the regiments identified this, and a lot of credit given to Mike Hall and the Three Rangers Foundation and all that we're doing across the FedEx program and looking at the regimental positions they have, taking care of that with Ranger for Life, is we don't start when they're ETSing. We start when they're walking through the door. We start looking at goals there. We start looking at education there. We start looking at finances and setting up and doing that there. And the regiment is doing that, on there. And then, of course, they'll keep formalizing more to go. But it doesn't start. Ranger for Life does not start at the end of your life. It starts the beginning of becoming a Ranger on that. When they walk through the unit on that is where that has to start. And there, like anything, you got to take periodic checks and see where we are with that across there. And we have coordinators working in the battalions and the regiment for that. We have people reaching out. The NCOs now are getting more education than we ever had, and opportunities to take fellowship into going through programs with major colleges. Emory University, I just saw one the other day that finished up some great work on there in NCO. So again, I think our officers are pretty good at doing that across the board, but we were lacking some, and I feel they're taking it to the next level, because I can't think of a better place to have an educated soldier than on the battlefield on that. And education is one thing nobody can ever take that away from you on there. To be well-rounded across that, it definitely makes a difference. So the thing that I think, the last statement I'll say on that there is that before they ever walk out the door, we got to get this partnership, the mentorship, by a name and face and a career path that soldiers want to take. Or if the phone call in the middle of the night with PTSD on that there, that we can always reach out and take care of each other on that. Many times we can't wait for that person that might not be the one to come for help on that. It sees a sign of weakness, but we have to reach out to them as well. We're working hard to get people to sign up for the mentorship programs across that. And it's growing, and I'm excited to see how it continues to grow.
Sounds good. I will I'll put this next question up, and then I'm going to put a link in the chat that will get people to the Ranger for Life program with the Three Rangers Foundation. So if anyone has questions, they can look there as well. Next question comes from Bill Wenger. Bill writes, thank you for speaking to us today. Tell us how to contribute to Ranger Life. In October, I will be teaching leadership to a number of senior Explorer Scouts who are focused on infantry service and police service. These are 13 to 21-year-olds. There will be other Scouts from other units, adult leaders, etc., attending this training for approximately 2 hours in duration. You have today given me valuable perspective for this training. I intend to use the Ranger Creed, an adapted version of Rogers' standing orders, the U.S. Army warrior ethos and values, what other things do you think I should emphasize for our young evolving leaders besides those four creeds?
Which, hey, that leads right into the common theme you've heard me say throughout this, and that is their values, the morals, the convictions, the discipline, the self-discipline, looking at their character and individual character. 2 hours, that's a lot to happen in that there. Those things build and make across there. But in 2 hours, really, you're giving them an introduction to it, which require follow-up. And you will see what ones are more interested and come back with follow-up on that. A program that I saw that the Brits were using when I went to their version of Ranger School, as I call it, the British Section Commanders course back in 1990, I saw how they had junior ROTC type program in high school where future para candidates would get together in high school and work with that, if you will, sort of like paras who had ETS'd or retired. And then they brought them in for a 2-week pilot program, a 2-week program summer, sort of like our cadets and ROTC do before becoming commissioned officers going out to the services. They would come to the para regiment and do things physical, leadership across that, mentorship, and spend time with the para regiment, with their version of RASP NCOs, and really that helped them very much on what to expect, and gave them really just a jump street coming into becoming paras. Now, I will say this as well, for those that decide not to become a ranger or decide not to come into the service, you're building a good citizen. And you look at that creed, you look at those values, the Army values on that, those are good for anyone across anywhere across that. Put religion aside, look at 10 commandments, like honor thy mother and father. That's probably pretty good in any religion on that there. So really in that short time is to focus on the values and the discipline and what it takes to get there, and what it means to be a citizen, what it means to serve, in the word service on that there, because service to their nation, and how to be become a soldier for life through a few years. It doesn't mean a lifetime that you had to be on active duty, but ways to come across that in those 2 hours, and look for ways to follow up with it, which look at your local communities and school boards and see type of things that you could do for a summer program to be ordained and approved with insurance and all the type of stuff with that now, and the legalities of it. But maybe the military could help out on that, or I've even thought of the infantry center or the ranger regiment. As I saw the paras did that very well.
The next question comes from John Alexander. John asks about the discrepancy that we are seeing among generations of Rangers. If you look around your community, you will generally tend to see lots of Rangers, lots of veterans also from the Vietnam era who are active and visible and connecting. But when you look around, you don't tend to see quite as much of that community building, at least in-person community building, from Rangers and veterans of the Iraq and Afghanistan eras. Are there things that you have thought of that you can suggest Rangers who are listening, or that we might all do to try to help bring some of those guys back into the fold?
Yeah, so first of all, I served in the regiment when I saw the first Ranger Rendezvous, and the first group of veterans all the way back from Darby's, Merrill's Marauders, Korean War Rangers, Vietnam Rangers, all the way up to the modern day active duty guys that we had across there. And I think what I saw many of those men do, they were waiting until they were much older to do that. Now, at a time when we had more people drafted and did several years in the Army, that went all out through the nation to build their lives, look, as they were aging, wanting to reconnect and come back with that. So look what they went through PTSD and struggles of not having coaching and mentoring, or a nation that did not honor them the way they deserve to be honored. And to all of our Korean War veterans, our Vietnam veterans, I salute them all, and took many of those guys become my great friends. I look at guys, Charlie's Ranger, Smokey Wells, who recently passed, former president of 75th Rangerism Association, Terry Roderick, who I met at those first Ranger rendezvous, as we connected very much to those Vietnam guys. They were the youngest of the veterans there. Back at that time, a lot of the Darby's Rangers, if you will, or World War II Rangers, Merrill's Marauders, were going to bed. And the Vietnam guys were hanging out with us. Most of them were in their probably 40s at that time there. I would say that age is a factor. That a young guy getting out, when I look across that, the many years I was young, I wasn't a member of our associations because I felt like I was already a member because I was an active duty ID card holder, being a Ranger, that I didn't feel a necessity to do it as I already was. But for those that ETS and went out about, I'm seeing many of them reconnect now with me and with their association as they're getting older. I'm meeting with a Ranger buddy who's bringing his teenage sons and nephews back around the Army and the Rangers and the regiment to give them a glimpse of a life he had, and perhaps one that they want to pursue as well. So I think the biggest factor on that, if I look back and seeing that in a different time, maybe when it was not where America went stand up and recognize veterans and our Vietnam warriors on that there. But again, how many of them would have joined associations at 22 years old, 25 years old? Most of them are doing it when they're older on that there. So, okay, we know that. Now the problem set is, how do we get them involved in that? We don't wait, again, until they're out of the Army. We work on that as a soldier for life, as a Ranger for life, that we get them connected. I can speak proudly of the 75th Rangerism Association, as I just came from our annual meetings at Fort Benning during the rendezvous, and voted upon to have for the RAS graduates that they are given membership to our association that is good for them as long as they're on active duty. And they've seen when they've done that, the numbers that then stayed on and stayed active after they got out and signed up to be a member of that. So we're hoping for the same thing on that, and seeing that that's a start with the right direction on that, and make them feel a part of it and connection long before they ever depart, and have them set up with that before they get out. I think that's I won't say the mistake that we made, but I can speak for every senior leader. There's one thing that none of us had done, and that was ETS. We waited in retirement. So we didn't know anything really that much about soldier for life, transitioning and becoming a civilian and going through the transitional classes and all that we do on that there is, because we always say we do everything that our soldiers do, but did we do that? No, we'd never sat through that. We were in charge of it, responsible for it, but that's one thing that we did not lead by example of going through it. They offered me after that many years to go to an executive course, which I did. But before I did that, I sat painstakingly through the E1 that was getting chaptered, the Spec 4 who certainly proud, are going to stay in mom and dad's basement and go to college, to the staff sergeant ETSing. Then I had the first sergeant or the major who was retiring. You can bet we all had different levels of transition on that there. Wow, I wanted to put needles in my eyes when they were asking me who knows what the Ronald McDonald House is, but you can see many people at different levels of their life was looking at more retirees of medical care and getting old, and how to work with your portfolios and whatnot. So different levels of that transition, I think, would happen as well on that there, because what a retiring sergeant major, or if a sergeant first class getting out, is different needs and different questions than a Spec 4 or a young sergeant getting out. And we have to identify that there, and maybe have different tracks, some common to all, but have different tracks of soldier for life, Ranger for life, and get them plugged into our associations well before they're walking out the door. And if I look back at our Vietnam Rangers, had we had an association such as that then, plugged them in, many would not have, been out there on their own for many years. I can say he was very proud, and I could call those guys our heroes, as I seen that rendezvous, and we cling to those guys so much that some of them become our godsends for us. I've seen a multitude of wounded Vietnam Rangers in our hospitals, visiting our wounded Rangers, our visiting soldiers, and giving back. And that was our heroes on that there. So I learned a lot on and seeing on not what to do and see what was needed. And then we continue to work to put words have to have meanings, and they got to have actions, and then we got to adapt and change a little bit, working with the active duty leadership across that very much so. So I think we're on the right track to get them plugged in on that. But no, there will be a certain percentage of that, hey, I just want to get off my life and drive on. And you will see, as I've seen now, of my buddies who were proud veterans and served a few years, but as they were getting older and coming back and their kids are growing up some, I'm like, hey, come on, I want to show you what your father did and a part of his life on that there. But again, we need to capture it before they get out. I think that is the main way on that, to get them into our associations. It's tough when they're out across America to do that.
I've got 2 more questions in the queue if you've got time for just a few more minutes, Sergeant Major.
Yes. And by the way, my cover name now that I'm retired is Rick on that there. As and like you, Travis, I show you, for example, all that you're doing is I said I spent a lifetime surrounding myself around people better than me. Look, I'm doing it again today by a personal electronic device. So I got all the time in the world. A Ranger for life means, for me, I hope into my 90s or 100s. Drive on.
I hope so too. The next question comes in from Jeff Bishop, who's a Ranger from back in 1968. Jeff says, I can't express my appreciation for the senior NCOs who shaped my perspective as a young officer with regard to the men I left. How would you compare the discipline and mission orientation of today's troops to those that we led back in the 60s and 70s?
Well, I really think if you look at a different time, a different Army, and see the culture of the Army, and look at it also when we had a kind of conscriptive Army of those who were being drafted, compared now to look where we have volunteer Army and seeing the standards that they have to be able to come in. There was a time where we had a large, a fairly good size portion of high school graduates who were not qualified to come into the Army, either through weight or physical fitness or other factors across that, to possible mental health, ill discipline, number of things on that there is. So I think in some ways we were not, I won't say the word burden, but we didn't have to deal with that as much. I felt with my time in than they had to from yesteryear. And I keep in mind, we're reflective of our nation, of our society. That's where all these soldiers and Rangers come from. So the nucleus across that is what you have to deal with on that. Now, we try to look for a small percentage of that when we're in a nation that has less than 1% of the people serve in the U.S. military, and look at the small amount of that that become Rangers on there. So those men and women are a very small nucleus and have high standards starting out just to get in that. And then, as I spoke many times, the culture and the character of that unit, where we demand, we hold them accountable. We hold ourselves accountable, our subordinates accountable, and an accountable unit on that. That was tough when you had folks coming in for a short time who were being drafted into the military on that. And also, I will tell you, I think a big factor is that we can stay in one unit for a long time, longer than the conventional Army. We know our Rangers. The leader and the led, they know each other. I know where he come from, what motivated him, what his hobbies were. I've met his mom and dad. I've been to their weddings. I was there when their babies were born. We were there when they got baptized. We've seen kids graduate from high school. I was there when sons that were wounded, when grandfathers come and visit, and grandsons who died in combat across that. We know each other very much. Now with that, I feel like loss comes even harder at the time when you've known a young man so long throughout that on it. I look at Staff Sergeant Jimmy Patton, who was killed as I was his sergeant major, who his father and I were team leaders before Jimmy was ever born. Jimmy used to cut my grass when his father was a sergeant major stationed on Fort Benning, and I was heading off to deploy before the Army was cutting grass for the Ys when we were deployed. A hard loss, seeing him grow up on that, to someone you've known that long. Again, I think that getting back to that, not getting off track, is that we know our strengths and weaknesses, and we got to know those we led so well on that there, that it definitely helped out with our discipline on that. Now, I experienced this some in the modern Army in Korea, that I felt Vietnam had issues with on the discipline, and that was my leader and lead did know each other as well. In Korea, most of my leaders, company commander and down, they were individual replacements. Going to Korea for 1 year, I had 10 to 12% turnover of the leader and lead every month. They simply didn't know each other on that there. That affected discipline on that across there. It wasn't until the battalion command level and higher where we were staying 2, 3. I was there almost 4 years on that there. So that was a factor. And I see that we had that same problem. I look now, in Vietnam had those individual replacements on that there. And the leader and lead, it hurts discipline across that on that. And at a time where maybe standards were much lower to come into units, but still, I know the Rangers in the Vietnam companies had a higher standard and had their own version of Ranger School on that, if you will, different course they had to take, a different selection criteria. So maybe they were a cut and above in those units there, but for the Army overall, big across that, I think that was really a true main factor on any discipline issues that we had. And then we look back and see at the times what was considered the norm in America across that there, that we were tested for drugs and tested frequently, and that your relief standard, you're gone, in a time where people were using that more freely. We have some of our own issues now that we will deal with and hold accountable across that on there. So I think that was the big factor between Vietnam, as I compared to Korea, was the leader to lead individual replacements is a killer. So, with the percentage of turnover every month that you have, it affects individual discipline and unit discipline very much.
All right. The last question I've got in the queue here. Rick, you were at the regiment for the vast majority of the time that it spent involved with the fight in Afghanistan. And a lot of us were down in Fort Benning last month, about 2 weeks ago, when the outgoing regimental commander talked about the exfil on July 2nd and the closing up of shop, and the fact that the Ranger Rendezvous this year was the first time he had all of his battalion commanders back on American soil at the same time. So the questioner here is wondering if you can say a few words about your thoughts about the conclusion of the formal conclusion of Ranger combat in Afghanistan, and where you think the regiment is headed next.
I think where the regiment is headed next to be ready to respond in a crisis, or when called upon again to lead the way, and they will be. So it's not where or how, it's just when. And it could be tomorrow again. So combat operations formally ending in Afghanistan, to me, it doesn't change one thing for the Ranger Regiment. I will say that what I don't want to see across the special operations community and that of our sister services and our brigade combat teams especially, is the walls that we tore down, as I spoke earlier, and use a multi-domain battle operations, now doctrine across that, is Maybe we would have had a Black Hawk Down. Maybe we would have killed Bin Laden in 2002 at Tora Bora. I don't want those walls to build back up, because that will cost lives, and that will cost time, and that will cost more billions of dollars across there. But the most important factor is it will cost lives, and the mission success on that. We have to make sure that we do not let that happen. As far as all the commanders back together at one time, yes, I was throughout many times across there, across multiple areas that we were spread out. I share a funny story of I had in the STV, one of my MI folks who was in relaxed grooming standards and clothing for the mission set that this soldier had. And I had a command sergeant major from one of the battalions approach me, a good buddy of mine for many years, and like, Rick, he's like, check this out. We found this guy here. It was like, man, he is awesome. He's got us so many jackpots. And it just comes to light to us that he's actually active duty. Could you meet him and see if you could hook him up with a Ranger contract? I'm like, sure. So I go with him, and I meet the young Ranger, and I first notice it's one of my specialists in the Special Troops Battalion who's about to make sergeant. Then I'm like, okay, you can come out from under your cover right now. Tell them who you are and what you do. And much to their surprise, there it was, their own regiment amongst them. We got a laugh out of it. I'm like, he's already in your regiment. But we were spread out over strike forces, over 3 different areas on there, different countries on that. And we really were losing some. We were fighting so hard and a surge going on. We had a point where we didn't have things to show our identity with a unit on that there. We weren't doing Banner Day. We weren't doing a Ranger Ball or a dining in, things that. I came back from combat with, at the time, my battalion commander and I, he pointed out, Sergeant Major Merritt, they didn't salute me over there. Of course, we were in PTs. I mean, they probably should know a photo of their commander, but from there, just back from combat, I'm like, sir, they don't know who you are. I'm like, they said hi to Sergeant Major, but I got to go around to be the eyes and ears, commandant of common sense around each of those strike forces and spend a week with them across there to look for trends and look for, looking across there and seeing how we were doing on that, to know the pulse of the units across there. And I called them back. Who am I with? They didn't know. And I'm like, sir, they don't know you. You were at the, mostly at the jock in this country. They come from that country. And we don't know each other as well. I had men at the time there, when you ask them what battalion, what unit they're in, 1 Bravo, 2 Charlie, wouldn't even mention battalion, wouldn't even mention the regiment, 3 Alpha, 2 Bravo. That's all they went, because that's what they knew. They were so far removed in being with each other on that. And that developed a lot of small unit leadership that they could really exercise. But you can see how important we had to have the core discipline and the know the commander's intent and practicing discipline initiative on that there at the speed of war across that. But there was some, you had to watch closely on that there, as there was some risk with that as well. But yes, we had not been together for all those years on that. And now bringing them back together, for getting back into the collective things that we never turned our back on these things, but for known combat had priority. When men were dying, wounded, we had missions nonstop, especially look at all the fighting hard we had from 05 to 08 with the surge in Iraq. And then from, anywhere from about 9 on to 13, the heavy fighting in Afghanistan is known combat had to have focus. So we, I would say now we have to collectively look at the near peer. We look at Russia, we look at China, we look at Iran, and look at the near peer and out there. There's a threat to us across there, and know that we have to get back involved in those things again. That we took some risk because we had known combat. Now, I would say with all those, the individual skills and the discipline and execute the small unit drills across that. Yes, just move it into a different scenario and all that there, but getting into the jungle again, on that there, looking across the Metroplex, a different type of mount, but you get back into the room, something that was different on that. But so that's a challenge, and we're probably where focus that they will have on readiness and getting back in some of those type of things that we had to take a risk and not do for some years on that there. As much as we used to deploy all over the world in different environments and getting to know different armies in that there. Well, obviously we couldn't keep at up tempo up and still be on call for any contingency that come up, and then have to turn right around and get ready to redeploy for known combat. You've got leaders now that they got the service stripes. If they were there as a private, and look at the RSM Donaldson going all the way up over the back on that there. So to have them all back is great. And I think it's a chance that they become, 1 Bravo, 3rd Battalion, 75th Ranger Regiment, U.S. Army across that USASOC, that they get back to knowing their units across that more than just the small unit leadership we had. So, but even this time, look at the rendezvous. We had 100 men from 1st Battalion. We had 100 men from men or women from 2nd Battalion, and not all the regiment was there. We had the commanders, but it's been some years, 20 since we've had a full regimental mass stack into that Ranger rendezvous. So it was good to see. And hey, in the way they, the discipline they use, I look at the General Scotty Miller and Tim Matheny, and knowing who the leaders were and where they came from, and knowing that both Rangers is, we made sure that we got out of there without letting the cowardly enemy try to take a gut shot at us on our way out. We looked at history and seen what can happen when you announce date times when you're leaving on that there. And I thought the way they retrograded out of there and almost took it tactically, as we know with how we done airfield seizures for a year, and kept it tactically and got out of there, maintaining security. So again, what were they doing? They were following Robert Rogers' standing orders, following our creed, following the doctrine and the training that Rangers do, and making sure that we got out. And to Colonel Brown and all those leaders across that, and down to our Rangers, that we did not take any loss doing that. And I think that was not by chance on that there. We definitely did the right thing. And what's around the next corner? It's like I always used to tell folks there, like, I don't know when, I don't know where, but I do know one thing. If this nation goes to combat, you're going. And to go, you need to be in this unit and work hard and do that. So that factor is still there. It's just, it's not if, it's when.
Thanks, Rick. I appreciate the perspective. I appreciate you giving us your time this afternoon. We asked you for 30 minutes, and you've given us 70. So you've gone above and beyond, as you always do. On behalf of the association, I thank you for coming today, for presenting. I thank the attendees for giving you their attention, and for all the questions that they sent in. The Become a Mentor program that the Three Rangers Foundation operates, that Rick had mentioned earlier, has been put up in the chat. If we close this down and somebody didn't get a chance to copy that down, please feel free to reach out to me. Please feel free to reach out to Rick. His address is on the 75th Ranger Regiment Association website. My address is on the USARA website, so we're both accessible. That's all we have for today, and this video should be going up, I believe, on Facebook within the next week, for anybody who didn't get a chance to see it today. Thank you all for coming.